7 longtime U.S. trade partners are quietly changing where they shop. They're not just exploring new suppliers, they're replacing American products with Canadian alternatives. Why is this happening now, in the middle of the Trump tariffs 2025 debate? What's driving this global trade shift, and who stands to gain the most? Stay tuned, because what's unfolding in country number 4, and especially number 1, could signal a turning point for global markets. June 2025 trade data, a snapshot of shifting flows. According to the latest BEA/FT 900 report released on August 5, 2025, the U.S. trade deficit reached $60.2 billion. Exports came in at $277.3 billion, while imports totaled $337.5 billion. On the Canadian side, Statistics Canada reported a 0.9% month-over-month increase in exports for June, yet the country still posted a $5.9 billion trade deficit. Data from Global Affairs Canada shows non-U.S. exports fell 4.1% month-over-month, with noticeable declines in shipments to Japan, but an uptick in sales to China. This mix of gains and losses reveals a market in motion, but not moving in a straight line. June's numbers highlight that trade flows are adjusting sector by sector, rather than shifting all at once. And those subtle changes could be the early signs of a deeper realignment in global supply chains. Number 7. Brazil. In Brazil, the quiet retreat of familiar American snack brands signals a deeper change in consumer priorities. For years, products like cookies, chips, and cereals from U.S. companies dominated supermarket shelves. That dominance began to fade as Brazilian regulators tightened rules on additives, GMO ingredients, and high-fructose corn syrup. These measures not only reshaped compliance requirements, but also shifted public trust toward what is viewed as safer and healthier. Consumers are now actively seeking brands that offer transparent labels, cleaner ingredients, and sustainable sourcing. Canadian exporters have stepped in with pulses, granola bars, and organic cookies designed to meet these expectations. Once overshadowed by U.S. giants, many Canadian mid-sized brands are now gaining premium shelf placements in major retail chains. Their appeal lies in aligning with Brazil's regulatory standards while catering to growing health-conscious trends. Although signs point to Canada's rising market share, official June 2025 shelf space data is not yet available. Analysts say Q3 will reveal if this shift is temporary or a lasting realignment in Brazil's food sector. For now, the message is clear. In today's market, trust and compliance can outweigh decades of brand loyalty. Number 6, a USTRALIA. In Australia, American fashion brands that once set the tone for casual wear are starting to lose their edge. A key issue has been seasonality misalignment. U.S. suppliers often push rigid global release schedules that clash with Australia's opposite seasons. These inflexible contracts, combined with shipping delays and price hikes, have tested retailer patience. In contrast, Canadian brands have moved in with a more agile approach, offering ethical sourcing, climate-appropriate collections, and faster turnaround times. Their willingness to adapt designs for local weather and trends has resonated with both buyers and consumers. Q2 data shows several major Australian retailers have signed trial contracts with Canadian labels, testing capsule collections ahead of the Southern Hemisphere's spring. Names like Roots, Tentree, and Frank & Oak are gaining visibility in shopping centers once dominated by U.S. denim and sportswear. While it's too early to call this a full market shift, procurement teams are watching closely to see if these trials translate into long-term partnerships. The coming spring season's purchase orders will be the real test, and could signal whether Canada becomes a permanent player in Australia's fashion market. Number 5. UAE. In the UAE, high-end retail shelves are quietly shifting, especially in wellness and personal care. Stricter regulations, including the Halal National Mark and tougher sustainability requirements, have raised the bar for imported goods. While some U.S. brands have been slow to adapt, Canadian companies have moved quickly to secure compliance and meet cultural expectations. Wellness leaders like Jameson Wellness and Natural Factors have aligned their formulations, packaging, and certifications with UAE standards in record time. This agility has earned them favorable placement in premium supermarkets, pharmacies, and specialty health stores. Q2 2025 data reflects strong global growth for these Canadian wellness brands, signaling competitive strength, but not yet confirming a full-scale replacement of U.S. products. Industry observers note that Canada's real advantage lies in niche segments: halal-certified supplements, plant-based protein powders, and eco-packaged skincare. These offerings fit neatly into the UAE's blend of cultural priorities and luxury consumer habits. The next few quarters will reveal whether these gains are a temporary window or the foundation for a long-term foothold in one of the Gulf's most influential markets. Number 4. France. In France, evolving EU regulations are reshaping what makes it onto store shelves. The Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation, PPWR, and updated restrictions on PFAS chemicals have intensified pressure on suppliers to deliver recyclable packaging, cleaner formulations, and transparent labeling. While many U.S. brands are still retooling their production lines, Canadian companies have been quicker to adapt, offering cruelty-free products with eco-friendly packaging that meet EU compliance without major delays. This speed to market has helped some Canadian labels secure space in eco-conscious retailers and premium grocery chains. From household cleaners to skincare, the emphasis on sustainability and ingredient clarity aligns closely with French consumer values. However, as of June 2025, there is no concrete trade data showing a significant, systemic replacement of U.S. goods by Canadian alternatives. For now, it appears to be selective, category-specific wins rather than a broad market takeover. Still, the shift raises a bigger question. Could this be the early stage of a supply chain reconfiguration across the EU, with France setting the tone? The answer may depend on how quickly U.S. brands can close the compliance gap before Canadian suppliers entrench themselves further. Number 3, India. India's Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA, with Canada has long reduced trade barriers, giving Canadian exporters an edge in agricultural and packaged goods. Pulses, lentils, and other staples from Saskatchewan and Manitoba have been key beneficiaries, securing a steady share in India's massive food market. However, a July 2025 policy announcement could shift the outlook. The Indian government has set a target for full self-sufficiency in pulses by 2028. If successful, this strategy could gradually reduce import volumes, challenging Canada's stronghold in this category. For now, Canada remains well-positioned, with consistent quality and reliable delivery that help it outcompete other foreign suppliers. In consumer goods beyond staples, the competition is less decisive. American brands still hold visibility in personal care and packaged snacks. Though Canadian entries are making inroads in health-focused segments, the coming months will be critical, with import statistics for HS code pulses in July-August expected to reveal whether demand for Canadian pulses is holding steady or starting to slow. India's market remains vast and complex, but future growth for Canada may depend on diversifying into categories beyond its traditional strengths. Number 2, Germany. Germany's retail and import landscape is heavily shaped by EU environmental and safety regulations. The tightening of PFAS restrictions and stricter packaging standards under the EU's sustainability agenda are raising compliance costs for global suppliers. For some U.S. brands, these changes have meant slower adaptation and higher barriers to maintaining shelf presence. Canadian exporters, in contrast, are being viewed as low-friction suppliers, able to adjust formulations, packaging, and documentation more quickly to meet German and EU-wide standards. This adaptability has helped certain Canadian products, from eco-friendly cleaners to sustainable packaged foods, gain trial placements in German retail chains. Still, as of June 2025, there is no concrete trade data confirming a significant loss of U.S. market share in Germany to Canadian competitors. Any current gains appear targeted and category-specific, rather than a wholesale shift. Analysts suggest that Q3 will be telling, as neighboring Austria and the Netherlands could follow Germany's lead in sourcing strategies. If those markets adopt similar procurement preferences, Canadian exporters could solidify their position, but only if they maintain speed, compliance, and competitive pricing in the face of potential U.S. countermeasures. Number 1, Japan. Japan's consumer market is renowned for its precision and strict compliance expectations. The Consumer Affairs Agency's positive list, updated on May 9th, 2025, introduced tighter requirements for materials in contact with food, alongside clearer labeling standards. For some U.S. exporters, adapting to these changes has been slow, creating small openings for competitors. Canadian brands, often more flexible in regulatory adjustments, have responded quickly with packaging and ingredient transparency tailored to Japanese norms. This agility aligns well with Japan's deep-rooted consumer culture of trust and harmony, where consistency and respect for detail can outweigh brand heritage. A notable signal came when a major Japanese lifestyle influencer partnered with a Canadian plant-based skincare brand, generating wide engagement and boosting brand credibility. While this does not yet represent a systemic replacement of U.S. goods, it marks a meaningful shift in perception. As of Q2 2025, there is no hard trade data confirming a broad displacement of American products, but the cultural groundwork for change is visible. Whether Canada can convert these early wins into lasting market share will depend on sustained compliance, competitive value, and continued resonance with Japanese consumer values. Common threads driving the top 7 market shifts. Across all 7 countries, 3 core factors stand out in Canada's recent trade momentum. First is compliance and regulatory alignment. From the EU's PFAS restrictions to Japan's updated positive list and the UAE's halal national mark, Canada's ability to adjust formulations, packaging, and documentation quickly has earned trust from regulators and buyers alike. Second is cultural alignment and packaging. Canadian brands often localize not just language, but also product presentation and ingredient choices to reflect regional tastes, values, and sustainability preferences. Whether it's cruelty-free certifications in France or minimalist, harmony-focused packaging in Japan, these cultural touchpoints create stronger consumer connections. Third is logistics and seasonal fit. Unlike U.S. suppliers that sometimes rely on rigid global schedules, Canadian exporters have shown greater flexibility in production cycles, shipping windows, and climate-appropriate product design. A clear advantage in markets like Australia, where seasons are reversed. These combined strengths have allowed Canada to win selective shelf placements and trial contracts in competitive markets. While the changes are not yet wholesale replacements, the underlying dynamics suggest a long-term opportunity. If Canadian companies can maintain agility, deepen cultural understanding, and scale operations without losing their compliance edge. Impact on U.S. companies, risks and responses. For American companies, the trends emerging in these 7 markets pose significant strategic risks. The most immediate is the potential loss of key international markets, many of which have been reliable revenue drivers for decades. Even small declines in share within high-value economies like Germany, Japan, or the UAE can ripple into reduced global brand visibility and negotiating power with distributors. Compliance demands add another layer of pressure. Stricter packaging, ingredient, and certification standards mean higher regulatory and reformulation costs, as well as possible disruptions to established supply chains. For companies operating at massive scale, adapting quickly across multiple jurisdictions can be both logistically complex and financially taxing. Yet the picture isn't entirely negative. Some U.S. brands have already demonstrated how to counter these shifts. One case study is a major American personal care brand that re-engineered its packaging to meet EU recyclability targets ahead of the PPWR deadline, securing renewed contracts with French and German retailers. Similarly, a U.S. food producer in Japan adapted ingredient sourcing and labeling to align with the updated CAA positive list, maintaining premium shelf space. These examples show that with targeted investments in compliance, cultural adaptation, and flexible logistics, American firms can slow or even reverse the competitive gains Canada is currently making. Opportunities and challenges for Canada. Sustaining the momentum. For Canadian exporters, the developments in these 7 markets represent both a remarkable opening and a demanding test. The primary opportunity lies in maintaining high compliance and product standards while serving markets with very different cultural, climatic, and regulatory demands. Canada's recent wins have been built on speed, flexibility, and credibility, traits that must be preserved even as export volumes grow. In the short term, Canada's ability to meet sustainability regulations, adapt packaging to local preferences, and maintain ethical sourcing will remain its competitive edge. Yet this success also carries the risk of over-reliance on current trends. Many of these gains are tied to specific market conditions, such as U.S. supply chain delays, tariff effects, or sudden regulatory shifts, which could ease or reverse in the coming years. If American brands adapt quickly, or if local markets close regulatory gaps, Canadian suppliers may find their shelf space under renewed pressure. To mitigate this, Canada will need to diversify its market strategy. That means deepening penetration in these 7 countries while simultaneously seeking footholds in other growth regions. Southeast Asia, Africa's emerging middle-class markets, and niche categories within the EU beyond current beachheads. Investment in brand building will also be crucial. Many Canadian products are still relatively unknown to mainstream consumers outside niche health or organic segments. Expanding marketing efforts, forming partnerships with local influencers, and securing multi-year contracts can transform temporary shelf gains into long-term market presence. Finally, Canada must balance ambition with capacity. Scaling too quickly without reinforcing supply chain reliability could undermine the very trust that fueled these opportunities. In short, Canada's path forward requires guarding its current advantages, broadening its reach, and ensuring that today's trade shift evolves into a sustainable position in the global marketplace. Watch list: the next 60 to 90 days. The coming 3 months will be critical for confirming whether the trends seen in June are gaining traction or beginning to fade. On September 4th, 2025, the U.S. BEA will release July trade data, offering the first post-mid-year snapshot of export and import flows under current tariff conditions. Around the same time, Statistics Canada will publish its July International Trade Report, which will help measure whether Canada's export gains are holding steady across both U.S. and non-U.S. markets. Regulatory developments also demand close attention. In the EU, further implementation guidance for PFAS restrictions and PPWR packaging rules could shift procurement strategies, particularly in Germany and France. In the Gulf, any updates to the UAE's halal national mark compliance processes could influence product approvals and shelf timelines. Meanwhile, Japan's CARA positive list is still in its early enforcement phase, and additional clarifications could either expand or limit market openings for compliant suppliers. Looking ahead, watch for emerging markets that could join the top list. Countries in Southeast Asia, parts of the Middle East beyond the UAE, or even secondary EU members may begin showing similar sourcing shifts toward Canada. Tracking these signals now will help exporters and competitors prepare for the next wave of changes in global trade patterns. What we've seen across these 7 countries is not yet a full reversal of global trade, but it is a clear signal that the ground is shifting. Canada's recent gains are built on compliance, cultural fit, and agility, while U.S. brands face pressure to adapt or risk losing ground. The question now is simple. If this trend continues, which American brands will be hit first and hardest? We want to hear your thoughts. Share your perspective in the comments. Your insights could be featured in a future episode. If you found this analysis valuable, give the video a like to help more viewers discover it. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our updates on Trump tariffs 2025, the global trade shift, and the next big changes in global markets.